So just going back then to the, because we've gone around a little bit, but you had the year, you predicted the change in the world of bodybuilding. How did you go from there to the Olympia?
Well, it's a stage, when you hit the IFBB World Championship and you win that one, that's a worldwide amateur title. You turn pro after that, and then you receive your invitations for the Olympia. And I was just smart to maintain the level of knowledge that I've gotten on my way up. Then why change things? Because when you go to another level, you can always say, well, now I'm in the big leagues, let me do something different. And see, it don't necessarily have to be different, because whatever gave you a level of success at this point, we'll continue to do so. Yes, you do want to add some science, things that make sense, that can add to your successes, particularly nutrition-wise, and that's a big difference. Not that you have to change the training up, but add to the nutrition. Because training for the first Olympia, 1983, I peaked at 243 pounds 4 weeks before the contest. Arnold saw me and said, wow, Lee, how are you looking this good this soon? And, I'm young, my first Olympia. I don't know. I'm just looking good and I'm eating. But come the day of the show, I only weighed 233 pounds. And Arnold saw that was weird for me to be in that kind of condition. 243, 10 pounds less, 4 weeks later. Couldn't figure out what happened. I placed third, which was great in the first Olympia. But I went back, me and Dr. Fred Hatfield sat down again, and we went over all the meal plans, He said, Lee, hey man, you're just not eating enough. You didn't eat enough. Went back to the drawing board, entered the 1984 Mr. Olympia, 243 pounds. I was that 4 weeks before in the 1983. But what I was learned at that particular point, that you can't train like a horse and eat like a bird. If you were giving more of a physical demand out of the body with aerobics, extra sets and reps here, then you had to increase the food intake. You can't, what I had won the nationals and the world championship from was, okay, you write your nutritional program and just the amount of calories you're on, you stay on that all the way through the whole deal. But the transition of knowledge from 1983 to 84 showed me that, listen, your metabolic rate, 16 weeks out from a show, and the fact that you always kept your body fat around 10, 11%, meant that you could eat and not starve yourself, because you didn't walk around like a fat boy in the off season. So I kept notes on that. So as I began to get closer to the show, I would watch my weight. As I saw it dip, I would up the calories. I ended up going from 3,000 to 4,700 calories up until a week before the Mr. Olympia in 1984. My body asked for more, but at that point I was wise enough to give it more. I had my notes, I had science that made a difference.
And what do you think about all these diets? Because you're, again, through competitive bodybuilding, you've had the ultimate ripped physique that everybody's dreaming for. There's low carb diets, there's fasting, there's all that stuff.
Okay, let me just make it plain. Low carb is for fat boys. If you look like a Poke the Pig in all season, you're fat. You got to burn this stuff off. When you burn it, trying to get rid of all the weight through aerobics and starvation, your muscle is not going to have that life to it, that life force where it looks great on stage and it's popping, because you're aerobicing yourself to death. And stress will show up on your physique. It'll tear you up, So my message has always been in bodybuilding, as I share with young athletes, always stay within striking distance. Train around no more than around 12, 15 pounds over your competition weight. And if you pick, let's say if you're 15 weeks out from the show, 16 weeks out, if you're 15% body fat, then guess what? You can drop a percentage every week until you bottom out at about 3% or 3.5%. You're ready then. And if you get there too quick, then guess what? Increase the food intake. But I don't believe in zero carbs. I never had to do that. I was a carb monster. My carbs would be 400 to 500 grams of carbohydrates a day because I was never a fat boy. See, that's the difference. These guys get 40 and 50, 60 pounds overweight, and they have to just traumatize themselves eating chicken and green beans. What kind of life is that? It's terrible, man. It's ignorance.
Right. And for people who are overweight then and do want to get down then, is there any sort of basic principles that you've followed?
Yes. Matter of fact, in my book, Fitted in the Age, it's the same principles of eating that I recommend for people and shows and so forth. Never go on a zero carbohydrate diet. Stay away from the keto. You should never be a zero. Keto is crazy. You know, you can go low carbs because when you're trying to get rid of body fat, you want your muscle to feed on stored fat in the body. So you have to keep the carbs low so the body will feed on that, because if you've got too many carbs, the body's going to feed on the carbs and the fat is going to stay where it's at. So you have to be smart in knowing how to manipulate. I recommend never going below 50 grams of carbs. Never going below 50 grams of carbs. Zero carbohydrates for me, keto for me, as you want to call it keto, we just said, just lower your carbohydrates or carbohydrate depletion. It was around 100, 150 grams of carbs, even when I was carbohydrate depleting. And that only happened 3 days prior to the competition, right. Not 3 days. Let's say we would go like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday I would carbohydrate reload. So during those 3 days of depletion, I would only go as low as 100 grams of carbs. I would never go zero. And that's what all the other activity I got going on. Then I would carbohydrate load, then go back up to 400, 500, 600, 700 grams of carbs 2 days to 3 days prior to the show.
Right.
But you got to find out, I talk about in my certification, you got to test that to find out, does it take you 2 days to reload or 1 day to reload? A bigger guy would take 2 days. You know, Ronnie Cole would take about 3 if you want to use that science.
Yeah.
So there's several different sciences you can use with that, but zero carb is a no-no.
Right.
You know, it throws the body into shock. That's why we do it, and the muscles overcompensate, or the cells overcompensate when you put the carbs back in. And that's why we want to hit the stage and we're full and the muscles and the veins is popping. And even on another point, when we do carbohydrate deplete, we don't use bacon and cheese and garbage. We use sunflower seeds, we use almonds, we use walnuts. And so you hear out there in this so-called diet community where these people are telling people to eat steak and use, you know, fats and cheese, and which jacks their cholesterol out of the roof. Total ignorance. They have half-truths. They don't live, and they haven't lived what we've lived. And I say we're bodybuilders. That's what we do. We understand the science of food. Right. They don't. They just read stuff and don't get it right and get a lot of people hurt or living on statins.
Yeah. So thanks for that. It's cleared up a lot of things. Also got me thinking as well about diet again. So 84, that was the first year you won the Olympia then. Was that right? What was that like?
Well, man, it's like a dream come true. I mean, golly, winning the Mr Olympia, it's a miracle in itself. And, you know, to be there on the same stage with Frank Zane and, you know, Robbie Robertson and Sergio Olivier was there. Wow. You know, that was absolutely incredible. It was like a dream come true, man. You know, you watch these guys in the magazine, you grew up admiring them. There you are, standing on stage with them. And to be the winner and the victor, wow. Thank you, Lord.
And what was it like going into that? Were you confident that you were going to be stood up on that?
Previous year I weighed 243, but went in the show at 233. I had went back and figured out through my notes and studied what had went wrong, because no one had stepped on the Olympia stage at that weight. and at that height, you know. So I knew that was a winning package. And I felt with all of my heart, because, I mean, you size up your competition. I always knew that if I was a combination of Arnold, Robbie, Frank Zane, Ed Corney, who can beat that? And I felt that that's what I had achieved during my whole career, not just for that one, but during my whole career. That's what I wanted to be like, a combination of all of those gentlemen, those awesome legends.
Right. And they say, certainly a lot of people we've interviewed and a lot of people with success always talk about the group of people around them, the sort of 5 closest people. Who were the people around you at that time?
Well, you know what? As I trained for my shows at that time, for the whole Olympia reign or the first Olympia, so which are you asking?
The first one you won, what was the sort of, you know, who were those people that was the sort of positive influence on you to get to that? Were you pretty much doing it on your own, or was there?
Well, you know, my wife was my training partner at one time. You know, Shirley was always there. She was my 2nd grade sweetheart. You know, she would help spot me, you know. Then when I moved to California, I had this other huge kid. You remember Ricky Wayne?
No, I don't.
Oh man, Ricky Wayne was doing Arnold's era and Robert Robinson era. Ricky trained out of a Gold's Gym in California, and he introduced me to a kid there that was huge Italian kid named Rick, and we ended up training together. I mean, Rick could move a lot of weight. So he became my training partner when I moved to California. And we would work out together. The science of training and nutrition, you know, what I knew had gotten me where I was. So I didn't go around looking for coaches. We didn't have coaches back then. You had training partners. Hey man, how do I look today? Am I flat? You know, what's happening? My definition coming in? What do my posing look like? So we would bounce ideas back and forth off of each other, you know, and that was our training partner. We didn't have coaches. Right. I don't know why these guys use coaches today anyway. It doesn't make sense to me, you know. So that was a huge influence. My wife and my training partner there.
Did you have any manager that was managing your sort of affairs at that time, or
no,
was it also?
My wife managed my affairs, and I managed them. We didn't have to do that. I mean, if you don't know how to manage your own affairs, then shame on you. You know, to go to other levels outside of bodybuilding and management and doing that kind of deal, okay. But at that time, it was strictly bodybuilding. Yeah.
So as you
had
the
wife? Best, yeah, I had my wife there. Then I had a great mentor in Joe Weider. Joe and his wife are Betty, just beautiful people. Love Joe. Still miss him today. He was always there. Another dear friend of mine is the NPC president and Pro League president, Mr. Jim Mannion. Love Jim. As a matter of fact, it was Jim who helped negotiate my first guest appearance.
Really?
And I love him all the way to today. You know, he's always been there. Anything I needed, as it was with any of the bodybuilders coming up to the NPC, IFBB, Mr. Mannion was always there.